catalogs and delineates what those impacts would be if you remove the dam. And then thirdly, largely as a result of the comments that we received in the first meeting like this, is we also studied dam rehabilitation. What would it cost to rehabilitate the dam, to fix the dam, to restore it so it lasts another 50 or another 100 years? And as part of that, we also included what would it cost to add hydroelectric power back to it, and what kind of impact would that have? Does it generate funds? Does it pay for itself, etc.? And so Scott will be covering that in more detail. So as I mentioned, all comments for the EA are due March 26th, and when we get those, we're going, and RVCOG's been doing this already, they're going to catalog those and put that in a package that's going to be presented to the Board of Commissioners. The comments received tonight, and when we go to the stations, we're going to be taking written comments summarizing your comment at the station, but please fill out one of the comment forms and provide that to us. That is the best way for us to receive comments from you, and it's the best mechanism for the Board of Commissioners to see that, and then to see that comment and then take that into consideration. So as we, Craig, are we going to hand those out when we go to the individual station?
So we can put some at each station, and if we run out or if you'd like to set up here, you can take one.
Okay.
Give it back to me, and I'll keep them all together.
Okay. So the board's then going to take and review all the comments, look at the data, read the environmental assessment, and take that package, and then they're going to make a final decision. And they're going to vote for one of the three alternatives: rehabilitate the dam, remove the dam, or no action at all. Once they make that decision, then the National Marine Fisheries Service and NOAA will take and also consider those comments. They'll revise the EA. They'll issue what's called a revised environmental assessment. And if they determine it to be so, they'll issue a finding of no significant impact. And then that will allow the project to then move forward at that time. That decision from NIMS has not been made yet, because we're in the comment period. They're still collecting those comments. NIMS staff have to review those things as well. And then, like I say, if they decide that there is a finding of no significant impact, they would generate that, and then that would conclude the environmental process as far as compliance with NEPA. So they could finish the permits and that sort of process, though. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott to go through many of the details that the studies found and some of the conclusions and things that we found from them.
Great. So thanks, John, for kind of an overview. And this is a really neat time for me, because having from day one basically growing up on the Rogue River, I have been on it all my life. Basically, when I was a kid, I learned how to ski, water ski behind Savage Rapids Dam, and I used to raft over the Gold Hill Dam, and then I, as many of you know from our last meeting, used to go frogging upstream the Gold Ray Dam. So it's really a neat opportunity that for me to get to come back and work on this river. I feel it's a big privilege and a big opportunity for me. I grew up in a logging family, and as this time in Grants Pass and as this time's progressed, it's been pretty interesting, because Steve Mason, who's also working on the project, grew up in Illinois Valley. And so it's pretty interesting to compare stories when we were kids and stuff growing up in this area, just to know about kind of the history and what's gone on in the Rogue River and all the different fun things there is to do. So basically what I'm going to try and do is go through a lot of the information that we conducted as far as studies, and try and give you some overviews and information to hopefully answer a lot of the questions, but there's probably going to be a lot of questions that are going to come to mind as a result of this process as well. And so that's the whole purpose of this meeting, is to continue to develop that discourse, and if you have questions, we want to know about them as well. And so that's what we're giving everybody an opportunity to write their questions down at these stations immediately after the presentation. So it's a really neat opportunity for you guys to give additional feedback. One of the things that's been driving this whole process here as far as the environmental assessment is the feedback that we got from our first meetings. And so we have those questions kind of logged and put in place. It's a very transparent process, so if you have questions, you can continually add to the list, so to speak, and we continually try to find answers as we go through this process as well. The presentation I'm going to deal with now is primarily dealing with the environmental assessment. We're going to talk about the wetland study and the hydraulic modeling as well, the historical and cultural preservation efforts, and then also the dam removal plan, if that is a chosen alternative by the Board of Commissioners and supported by the National Marine Fisheries Service. To give you a little bit of context here for the area that we're dealing with, this here is where the Gold Ray Dam is located, which you're all familiar with since you're here right next to it within a mile or two. Here's Shady Cove, Eagle Point, Gold Ray Dam right there. And I put this picture up here for context because this is an important picture. As you can see, it's a lot of mountains up here, and then it comes into what's kind of white, which is pretty much all a big flat plain. And then you'll see right at the Gold Ray Dam, things really start to get into mountains again. So I want you to think about that a little bit as we're going through this discussion, especially when it comes to hydraulic modeling and sediment transport and what happens in rivers in these different environments like this. So I'm just kind of prepping you so that when we get to that point, this picture, I want you to think about that as we get down into some of the deeper details. When we talk about the environmental assessment, we looked at a couple different alternatives, and one of those alternatives was rehabilitating the dam. And that was the reason that alternative was looked at, is because a lot of people brought that up as a valid concern or an interest that people wanted to know, is this something that we could conduct hydropower and use as a resource for energy? And so that's important to get an answer to that question. And so that's one of the studies that we did, is what would it take to rehabilitate the dam? This here picture is from 1941 when they were constructing the Gold Ray Dam. It's pretty cool because we were able to find a lot of very nice historical pictures. They did a pretty good job of documenting the construction process. Here you're looking at the formwork and the concrete piers that were being built into the bedrock there to form the dam. And so with this information, it makes it very helpful so that we can see if we have to go in and have it meet current standards for things like seismic design or earthquakes and structural stability, so that we don't have any kind of a sudden failure of the project or the dam, we need to know how to retrofit that. And so that, by knowing how they built it, we can understand better and come up with a better game plan for actually rehabilitating the dam structurally. So that's what this is here, is just showing some ideas for the rehabilitation of the actual structural components of the dam. Again, it's detailed in the rehabilitation report that we have as an appendix in the environmental assessment. The other thing that would have to be addressed, so you have the structural integrity of the dam, you also have to deal with fish passage and meet current design criteria, current criteria for both ODF&W and National Marine Fisheries Service. The current fish ladder is a little less than 200 feet long. In order to meet the criteria that's out there today, the fish ladder has to be closer to 600 feet long, so about 3 times longer than what it is right now. And this is just a plan showing a conceptual design for what a fish ladder may look like if a new one was installed there. And this fish ladder here is similar in function as the existing fish ladder that's there, but it also contains a lot more water. So there's requirements for how much water has to go down the ladder compared to how much is flowing in the river over the dam. You have to have fish attracted to your fish ladder, so you have to increase the amount of water down the fish ladder compared to what's there today when you go out and look at it. And so in order to do that, it's a significantly larger fish ladder required. And then in order to dissipate that energy, it has to be quite a bit longer, about 600 feet compared to the 200 feet that's out there today. There's some other things. So we talked about the structural integrity of the dam, and this is under the rehabilitation and power generation scenario. We look at the structural integrity of the dam. We look at fish passage to meet current criteria. But there's also some other issues. In our discussions with all of the different agencies, the water master here in Oregon Water Resources Department was very adamant about the fact that there's no water right to generate power at the Gold Ray Dam. That was surrendered back when the dam was turned over to the county. And the FERC, Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, that license for generating power was surrendered at that time. So there is nothing in place today to generate power and divert water.